Hey friends, thanks so much for tuning in. We've got a very special broadcast for you. We have Dave Kranzler from Investment Research Dynamics on the line, and our friend Rory, who's a contributor at SGT Report and also has the site dailycoin.org. And today we're going to share some of the outrages of the day with you. Guys, how are you?
Doing all right.
Thanks. Thanks for asking. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you guys on the line. I know we've been emailing back and forth over the last 24 hours about each of our own outrages of the day, and I thought it would be fun to get on a call where we all express our concern for this fragile republic. And I wonder, maybe I should start off by asking you guys, do we even have a republic at all anymore?
No, it's an oligarchy.
I concur.
It seems that it has been for some time now, too.
I concur, and if you guys don't mind, I want to share my outrage of the day first because it's topical, it's in the news, it has to be covered. And when we talk about
let me guess, it's got 3 letters, HRC.
Well, it's actually got 7 letters, CLINTON. And as we talk about the oligarchy, there is no better example of it than the Clinton Global Initiative, which is their foundation. Of course, we know that Hillary has been pegged as getting donations by foreign governments to the Clinton Foundation. And this latest outrage is the fact that she has been using her own personal email when she was at the State Department. And not only that, she was using her own server. And my question to you guys is, who set up that server? Because it would tell us a lot, because it would take a lot of IT technology, it would take a lot of IT willpower, it would take a lot of IT intelligence to set up a private server in her home for her State Department use. Now, the most important thing in a republic is transparency. The most important thing in a republic is she's supposed to be doing the bidding of the people. And the best way to cut to the chase on this is Hillary had a separate set of books. It would be like having an accountant working for your firm who you trust with your books, to do the books, to do your accounting for your corporation, and you find out they've got a separate set of books for their own benefit. This woman is an absolute vampire, and I want to read this to you guys from USA Today's Washington Bureau Chief Susan Page, no better example of a mockingbird. She says, as she covers this latest outrage, she says, Hillary Clinton is still the dominant frontrunner for the Democratic nomination for the President of the United States in 2016. There's no question about that, she says. And she goes on to talk about, she used a private email address and completely leaves out the fact that she also used a private server. And it's just an outrage because, again, guys, my question is, who set up that server? Who set up the server? Who is the company? Does it track directly back to the CIA? This woman is an oligarch, this woman is a criminal, and this woman should be in jail for crimes against the Constitution.
I agree with that, and it's not just a private server, it's a private server in her house in Chappaqua, New York. So it's not even a server that's in DC, it's in New York. And I had the same question yesterday when I read the details about it, which was who set it up. And what's interesting about this, and we should be able to get it, but we won't, is the NSA probably knows everything. They probably even know who set it up. And what's even more interesting about this is we wouldn't even know about this if that guy who she was emailing over in Europe, I think his name was Sid Blumenthal or something.
Right.
We wouldn't even know about it except that an Eastern European computer hacker, Romanian or Hungarian or something, hacked into this guy's email account. And that's the only reason we knew about this in the first place.
Yeah, and this USA Today report has just got me rattled because the headline says, Hillary Clinton asks State Department to release her emails. That's their headline on March 5th. How is the State Department supposed to release her emails when they're locked up on her private server? Again, she will get away with these crimes. It will all go down the great American memory hole, and they will continue to present her as the front runner for the Democratic nomination for president in 2016. It is insane. She should be in jail.
I saw that headline too, and the first thought that occurred to me is she's already figured out how to skate out of this by making a public statement like that, because now the MSNBCs and the CNNs of the world and the network, the major network news media will now say, see, she's opening her books. She's willing to open up everything to everyone, and they're going to put lipstick on this gory pig and the public's and serve it up to the public, and the public's going to eat it up. I mean, women are going to want to vote for her anyway, for the most part, except for the women who watch Fox News.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's just like Obama had the black vote sewn up. It didn't matter. I think he had something like 95% of the black vote. It's the same thing with Hillary. She's going to get a preponderance of the women vote, regardless of party affiliation.
Yeah, in this video, you guys, with Washington Bureau Chief Susan Page from USA Today, the video starts with Hillary Clinton, with a Hillary Clinton soundbite, her speaking in front of a crowd saying, "Don't you someday want to see a woman president in the United States of America?" And it's just, it's always cutting to the most base. It's always cutting to the most infantile. And that's the way they handle it in the Mockingbird media. They will never deal with the stuff, the substantive issues that we talk about, the stuff that's really, really important, right?
Just not to belabor a horse that should be dead by now, but unfortunately I've been cursed with a very good memory, and it's amazing how quickly everyone forgets the real history with the Clintons, going all the way back to Watergate, or not Watergate. It was Whitewater. That's what it was. I knew it started with a W. Remember Whitewater?
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Remember Vince Foster?
Well, before Vince Foster, what about how all of a sudden $100,000 mysteriously showed up in her commodity trading account that was being managed by a very wealthy Chicago-based investment advisor?
Yeah.
Well, what about all of the drug money that was running through
Mena, Arkansas. That's
exactly.
right.
Arkansas, yeah.
Well, and you guys, that's why
$100 million a month.
Yep, and that's why. See, this all comes full circle when
Drugs
you know
and
the
guns.
history. When you know the history, it all comes full circle as they present Jeb Bush as the front runner for the GOP nomination. What a joke that is! He had to bus in supporters for the latest CPAC. He has no grassroots support at all. So they're going to give us Hillary Clinton and Jeb Bush. Well, what's the relationship there? Well, the Clinton family is close to the Bush family, going all the way back to Mena, Arkansas, when the drugs were running. The CIA drug running was happening down in Mena, and I think that Clinton vetted himself with the CIA. I mean, Clinton was brought into the inner circle, which is described in this video that Rory posted today, the Clinton Chronicles, that he had known about the shadow government already in his youth and had been very enthusiastic to get an entrance into the inner circle and from there have the opportunity to participate in decisions regarding the future of the world. That's Bill Clinton's history, Mena, Arkansas, CIA drug running. Well, who used to run the CIA? Bush Sr. So, see, again, we get this oligarchy, this two-family system now who's been in power for decades and decades. And you can make the argument that the Bushes have been in control of this country for multiple decades, going all the way back to Prescott Bush in his chumminess with the Wall Street bankers back in the 30s.
Wall Street bankers, Prescott Bush was the financier of the Third Reich. When he was a managing director at Brown Brothers Harriman, they were financing Hitler's party.
Yep.
And George Herbert wasn't just a member of the CIA. He was one of the guys who was instrumental in transforming it from the OSS into the CIA. Remember that movie with Matt Damon and
oh yeah,
I think was it The Good Shepherd?
Yeah, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, I've always suspected that movie was about the Bush family. And how they transformed the OSS into the CIA, because that was a CIA movie.
Yeah, no, that movie cuts very, very close to the truth. I mean, it's about
Robert
as
De Niro,
truthful
that's
as
who
it
it was. Remember that they showed him at Yale, and that's where the Skull and Bones Society is, and the Skull and Bones Society is thought to be really, one of the dark forces behind the shadow government.
Yeah, Kerry was a bonesman, Bush was a bonesman, and they both admitted it while they were running. Neither would talk about it. Everybody the Mockingbird media likes to make fun of that, calling it, just an old boys club, just like the boys get together at Bohemian Grove and frolic in the woods naked. Oh, it's just guys being guys. Well, not any guys I know. Frolic. What a great word.
We could go off on a tangent on that, but maybe just to circle back to the Rodham Clinton thing. I mean, we could speak all day about just how vile and evil the Clinton family is.
Yeah, they have.
Everyone, including Chelsea, who I can't stand.
Yeah, there's quite an association with dead people in the Clintons. The Clinton death list is a long, scary one. And Chelsea, didn't she just marry she married into an oligarchy? I swear she just married a Rothschild or somebody related Rockefeller.
His hedge fund got annihilated on Greek bonds.
Oh, well, good. Maybe there is spiritual justice in this world. All right, so who wants to bring up the next outrage of the week?
You're up, Rory.
Well, it's not an outrage. It's actually more along the lines of happy news, if there is such a thing in this world that we live. And that is on March the 4th, Simon Black over at Sovereign Man posted an article. The Chinese have put out billboard ads announcing the renminbi as the new world currency. And he posted this image, this photograph that obviously he took or someone took from a moving vehicle of exactly that. And it's this giant billboard, and it's apparently right outside of the Bangkok airport. And it says RMB, new choice. And then it says the world currency. And it has an image of a coin, and the coin is gold in color. It looks like a gold coin. There, I can't see any of the details on it, but it's pretty incredible that they are being that brazen about it. I mean, China is literally advertising its currency overseas. This is directly from the article, making sure that everyone landing at one of the world's busiest airports sees it. They know that the future belongs to them, and they're flaunting it. And it's true. So I just think that I find it very interesting that China is acquiring every single speck of gold that they can in the world, and everybody knows that. Everybody that pays attention to the gold market. And now there is this billboard showing up in Bangkok with a gigantic gold coin on it announcing the world currency. I'm not sure if I'm excited about it or if I'm terrified by it, because it could go either way for us at this point. As far as we know that the dollar's days are numbered, we know that everybody around the world is very unhappy with the United States, except for the people that are here that have no idea what's going on. And it just seems like this is some type of, I mean, why would they do that?
They're flaunting their eventual world economic power. They're flaunting it right in the face of the U.S. And this is the reason why I really believe that the New World Order theorists and the one world, one government theorists are going to be wrong, because history has told us that you never have power entities sharing power. There's always one supreme power eventually. Remember, we had in the 70s, it was really a bipolar U.S.-Russia world. Well, it was USSR back then. And eventually the U.S. rose above Russia. And I think the U.S. right now, it has been up until now the undisputed superpower. Well, I just don't see, it'll be interesting to watch the China-Russia relationship evolve, because they're clearly aligned against the U.S. But I think China's flaunting it. I mean, everyone knows the U.S. is out of gold, or very close to being out of gold. And everyone knows China's been accumulating a ton of it. And no one knows exactly how much, not even Kuz Jansen. No one knows how much gold China has.
Yeah, because
so
they don't report
what they're doing is they're saying, look, this is your future, people. You know, it's their version of the eyeball on top of the pyramid on back of the dollar, or the upside down stars. It's their version of it.
Right. You know, as you stand back and you take a look at the future of America from a 30,000-foot view, knowing all the things that we, the three of us, know, it does make you want to get out of this country, because the future's not going to be good. It's just not. I don't care how much silver and gold you have. I don't think living in this country 10, 20, 30 years out is going to be a good thing. They're going to deindustrialize us even more than they have. If you take a look at the TTP, the secret agreement that Obama's trying to engage in, and they're going to just gut us. And Peter Schiff, I was watching a video with him yesterday that we posted as he talked about renouncing U.S. citizenship. Record numbers of people wanting to renounce their U.S. citizenship. It used to be free to get the paperwork to do that. Then they made it $450. And now it's, I think, $2,350 as they're trapping people. They do not want people to escape the tentacles of the IRS and the tentacles of this really fascist system now that scares the hell out of all of us.
Oh, I agree with that. And I've always said, I mean, from as far back as when I first started getting into all of this back in late 2001, I've always said, you know, the best thing to do if you want to avoid what's going to happen in this country is you got to get out of it. But, you know, it's hard to do if you got families or whatever. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I haven't left this country, because eventually, at some point, they will close down the borders. And if you're out, it's going to be hard to get back in. I mean, it's going to be like what happened in Germany in the 30s and the early 40s. I mean, after a while, they just closed the borders. You know, at first they let the Jews leave freely, and then they shut the borders down. And they're going to do that to us too. And I agree. I mean, and I don't think it's 10 or 20 years out, Sean. I think it's a lot closer than that, because just think about, just play the tape on what happens if, say, China were to all of a sudden overnight announce that they were implementing a global currency that was backed by gold, and everyone is free to trade with them if your currency is backed by gold, but you have to convert to their currency, right? And the U.S. says, hey, our currency is backed by gold, we can trade with you. And then China says, well, let's see your gold.
Yeah.
I mean, the dollar goes to zero. I mean, even guys who think they're millionaires, they're going to be rendered virtually penniless overnight in that scenario.
Well,
and this is going to be a third world. This country has, when you think about it, it really has a negative net worth when you add up all the debt. And eventually, we're going to have to, you know, we're going to pay for that. We're going to pay the consequences of that. And that's what a currency reset will do. It'll make it happen overnight. It's just like in Germany in 1923. I mean, guys who had billions of dollars of marks in the bank, all of a sudden their money was worthless when they woke up one day.
China is supposed to be announcing later this year how much gold that they have. It's either in May or June.
I doubt they'll tell us what they really have.
Well, I do too, but they're supposed to be coming forth with some information regarding.
Let's see what it is, and they are going to establish a Shanghai-based gold fixing. I mean, they're basically telling us ahead of time the steps they're taking to do what I think they're going to do, which is what that billboard shows.
You guys, as you were talking, I was searching for this article. I couldn't remember where I had seen it, but I thought it was the Rand Corporation's own information, which had predicted a U.S. population plummet to, I think, 65 million by 2025. And one would ask, how in the hell could that happen? But as we talk about the bleak future, boy, I'll tell you what, you know, if they took out the grid, you guys, if they really wanted to destroy this country, they could kill a lot of people real fast, because we've got a spoiled nation of people, half of which live off the government, a good majority of which live in unsustainably large cities. And, you know, if the Rand Corporation says that the U.S. population will plummet by 2025, I'm not trying to be a fearmonger. They're the ones saying that. I guess we could see how that's possible. And it's scarier than hell. And it gets back to the idea of getting out of this country while the getting is good.
Yeah, because that's only 10 years from now.
It's stunning. I can't believe how fast time's moving. You're right, 2025. In my mind, that's still 25 years away. It's not. It's 10 years away.
It's 10 years away.
I think it's going to happen quicker than that.
So what do they have planned for us? What's the plan here? The Rand Corporation, that's a scary entity. That's about as scary to me as DARPA. These people are serious. It's part of the shadow government. And why would they be saying that? Why would they be saying U.S. population will plummet by 2025?
Because they know something that we don't.
Or because they're part of a plan that we aren't part of.
I mean, if we go from 310, 315 million down to 65 million, that's a what? 40,
I hate
40%.
I hate to let the conversation wander into the dark world of the heart of darkness of conspiracy theories, but I mean, there's been people who have foreseen these types of developments, decades ago, and I'll just point out one particular movie, Soylent Green, and maybe that's what the Rand Corporation report is perhaps alluding to, a scenario like that.
Well, or more along the lines of what we've been seeing recently, as far as movies like the movie Divergent or the Hunger Games series.
Hunger Games, yeah, exactly.
That type of scenario, which goes back to the question that I've been asking for several months now, as far as once the ICBMs start flying, how many are we going to take here in the lower 48? How many ICBMs are going to be landing in the major cities of Atlanta and Dallas and San Francisco and New York and Chicago? I mean, and just completely goodbye.
Yeah, but the thing is, you guys, is they don't have to even go that far. If God willing, we're able to escape this World War III scenario where they actually push Putin into a thermonuclear exchange, if we're able to somehow escape that fate, they can still bring us to our knees by closing down the ports, by crushing our just-in-time food delivery system, by bringing down the grid, by turning the cities into absolute hellholes. They could bring this country to its knees far, far quicker than the average person believes. I know the average person, my friends and neighbors, still think the dollar is king and that this paradigm is going to continue for another 50 years. That's really the definition of insanity, is that most of these people, most of our friends, neighbors, and colleagues have no idea how dire the situation is getting.
Well, I've said for a long time, at least 90% of the population of this country has no idea the size and the velocity of the 2x4 that's headed for the back of their head. And by the time they see it coming, it'll be too late to duck. Yeah. And I just wanted to share something that I emailed to Bill Murphy of GATA and the Midas Report, La Metropole Cafe, yesterday, because he and I were emailing back and forth, and he said something that provoked me to say this. I said, this whole shit show will end up either in World War III or revolution in this country. I think the U.S. population has been thoroughly lobotomized and lacks the fortitude to engage in revolution. I also think the reason the U.S. is trying to provoke a war with Russia is to use the war as a cover-up for the economic and financial war it's been waging on the U.S. population for the last 20 years, really ever since Robert Rubin got into the White House via his Treasury appointment, which of course was under Clinton.
Right. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I emailed you guys yesterday saying that I was listening to an interview with comedian Artie Lang in which he said, Americans have no more right to say, how did the Germans let the Nazis rise to power and kill all those Jews? And how did this happen? How could a people allow that to happen? And his point was, that's exactly what we do. That's exactly what Americans do. Americans let this government do whatever it wants, listens to everything that's said, believes it all, and is willing to fall right off the cliff as this government leads us into war after war after war, butchering men, women, and children across the planet with drone strikes and unconstitutional wars of aggression, all in the name of what? Spreading liberty? They're love bombs, I guess, is what the American people have concluded. And Artie Lang's point was, we as Americans at this point in history have no right to question the history of how things happened in the past because we're repeating the same damn mistakes.
Well, you're referring to places of far away, other countries, as far as the wars. What about the militarized police that are, at this stage, are allowed to recklessly murder people in broad daylight on the streets on a regular basis? This is now becoming a pattern. This is now becoming part of the landscape. And if it's right there in your neighborhood, it's not Afghanistan. It is in your neighborhood.
You're right.
That these things are happening, and that's what people are allowing to happen. And until that stops, what chance do the people in Afghanistan or Iraq or Syria or Ukraine have when a policeman, somebody that's supposed to represent the authority that's supposed to represent the people of that neighborhood recklessly and callously murder people in broad daylight.
No, you're
And they
absolutely
walk
right.
away from it.
You're absolutely right, and it's even worse than that, though, Rory, because if you take a look at what happened after the Boston Marathon bombing and how the militarized police rolled out and locked that entire city down, it's far worse than a rogue cop or a rogue group of cops. It's an entire city. It's entire cities having been really militarized by the Pentagon, getting all this gear, getting all of this money to militarize and to turn that apparatus around on the people, looking for one guy or two guys that they say bombed the marathon. That's now the new norm. And then the celebration that took place in baseball stadiums after under the BS Boston Strong marketing. The propaganda matrix is so heavy. Boston Strong. We were strong because we allowed our city to be taken over and we allowed ourselves to be locked down by fascist militarized police. You're absolutely right. It's insane.
All that to find two 20-year-old kids from Eastern Europe.
Yeah, that more than likely didn't do it.
The same thing happened in Ferguson. I mean, they rolled in the National Guard there.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's a lot of the big cities are now acquiring lightweight military equipment and vehicles. And there was an article in the Denver Post, which I'm sure no one read, in Denton, Colorado, but several of the rural cities around Colorado have now acquired military equipment and military vehicles. And I'm like, what do they need that for?
Yeah, those MRAPs.
Right.
You guys have seen those MRAPs, right? They're absolutely horrifyingly large machines that previously were only seen in Iraq and Afghanistan, but now they're here domestically because we know that the war on terror is in the homeland. They've turned the homeland into the battlefield in this war on terror, this 100-year war on terror. And just getting back to the Boston Marathon thing, you won't see the Mockingbird mainstream media tell you that the Kraft International guys were all over, on the ground there. They're Kraft International guys, and the American Sniper that everybody was so excited to go see that movie, the American Snipers company, Kraft, was boots on the ground there. You had black ops guys on the ground, and then this whole thing rolls out, and of course they blame it on these two guys that were probably FBI patsies. And the Mockingbird mainstream media will never talk about the Kraft boots on the ground. They'll never talk about the black ops guys on the ground. But we're supposed to give up our rights because I guess that's the only way to be safe and to be free is to give up our rights.
Well, it all started with 911. I mean, they shock and awed most of the U.S. population into complete and utter fear of the boogeyman.
Yeah. They did. It was absolutely a brainwashing operation on top of a black ops operation. Hey, Dave, before we get too long into this thing, we haven't even heard what your sort of outrage of the week is, have we? I mean, we've heard a couple, but did you have a specific one?
You know what? The stuff I'm pissed about kind of pales in comparison to these topics. We don't really have to talk about it, but I did have a blog post yesterday where I talked about every time the stock market goes into a free fall, all of a sudden, one of the big electronic communication trading networks breaks.
Right.
Zero Hedge always posts the headline, "The stock market breaks again," which is funny. But I mean, what happened? And yesterday's a perfect example. If you look at, and I have a graph on my blog that shows the time frame of it. The stock market was literally ready to fall like a lead weight off the Empire State Building, and all of a sudden, the BATS ECN breaks. It's got four subsidiary ECNs that all feed into the New York Stock Exchange, and they all quote unquote broke at once. And it basically, what it does is it halts the deluge of selling that's piled up into the system, the selling that's selling for a reason and should be selling, and it halts that, and then you look immediately. A few minutes later, they're back up and running, and the S&P heads back up higher.
Yeah, and you noted, or maybe it was Bix, because Bix wrote about this too, or maybe it was Zero Hedge, but you guys noted that it never happens in reverse when the stock market's,
I said that. I said this happens every time the market goes into cliff dive mode. How come it never happens when the S&P 500 is going parabolic to the upside? They never stop the parabolic moves, like when a bogus employment report number is released and all of a sudden the S&P shoots up 20 points in like 10 minutes. How come the market never breaks then?
Yeah. NASDAQ,
I mean, it's just absurd.
NASDAQ 5,000. I'll tell you what else is absurd, you guys. IMF director admits the Greek bailout was to save German and French banks. Again, endless fascism here at home, abroad.
Yes, but what he didn't touch upon was the silent bailout that went on behind the scenes there. And the silent bailout, he's referencing the actual sovereign Greek bonds that German and French banks own. And no one talks about this, but it's the big white elephant in the room that no one talks about. Most people probably aren't even aware of it. What about all the credit default swaps, the OTC derivatives that U.S. banks plus Deutsche Bank have underwritten that are connected to sovereign Greek debt bonds? I mean, if there's $350 billion of Greek sovereign debt outstanding, there's 3x that in OTC derivative credit default swaps, and most of them are domiciled with U.S. banks and hedge funds. And we find out yesterday that while the Fed was busy doing their bank bailouts along with Obama and TARP, we find out that whole period of time Citibank was completely insolvent. And I can guarantee you Citibank and Morgan Stanley and JP Morgan and Deutsche Bank would have gone insolvent if they let Greece default. And not because of the sovereign bonds, it's because of the derivatives that are connected to those bonds.
Yeah.
That are just waiting in the wings to blow up.
Exactly.
It's I was talking with John Rubino yesterday, and we talked about that. And there are the sad part is that there are no signs of when they're going to blow up. But
there never will be signs. You can't know because the whole accounting for them, there's no accountability for them.
Right.
Greenspan and Robert Rubin and Tim Geithner back in the late 90s when Elizabeth Warren and Brooksley Born tried to make a move to highly regulate derivatives. It was really Robert Rubin. He shut it down. Rubin and Greenspan
threw Brooksley Born out. They pretty much ran her out on a rail.
They shut it down, and they shut down any move to regulate these things because that's where Wall Street really makes their money is with these derivatives. If they blow up, they'll if the derivatives blow up, they'll give it all back and they'll lose it all. But they're not going to let them. They're not going to let these derivatives blow up for as long as they can help it.
No, they're going to put nation states in the way of that blow up. So they're going to blow up nations. As the derivatives blow up, they'll blow up nations like we're seeing with Greece. They're going to blow up. They're going to do it to us. This apparatus is going to be turned around on we the people. That's really the punchline at NASDAQ 5,000 and Dow 18,000 or whatever it's at. The punchline is that for as good as all your fellow Americans think life is, because if you're employed, if you have a job, incidentally, guys, I used to work at Target for 10 years at the headquarters, and they've just announced that they're laying off, after laying off 550 people here in February, they have announced that they're laying off several thousand people at headquarters over the next 2 years, to which I say, if everything's so damn awesome, why is Target laying off thousands more people at their headquarters? The economy's in shambles, but if you have a job and you have money in the stock market, right, there's a lot of people in this country that think things are great. But that's the punchline, because this apparatus is going to be turned around on we the people. It's being turned around on we the people, but eventually it's going to be turned around on us financially. And they're going to come after the pensions, and they're going to come after your 401k money, and they're going to get it all, right? Just like George Carlin said they would.
I agree, and I don't know if there's a lot of people. A comment I made to someone yesterday was there's probably about 10% of the country that thinks everything is great because they're making a ton of money in their retirement funds and they're somehow connected to the crumbs that are being tossed off of all the money printing, financial advisors, lawyers, etc., deal makers, private equity guys. So they think everything's great. Or, there's people who work in tech right now because tech is being completely overfunded, and it's a huge bubble, but it's being funded because of all this money that's been printed and is funneling into tech. And then there's probably another 10% of the population who they basically live paycheck to paycheck, but they're able to spend a lot of money on credit cards and home equity loans, and they've got fancy car leases, and they're they're skating along, but they think things are fine, and they're like, things are going to get better, and I'll be able to pay off all this debt. And then I'd say the rest of the people know that things are not well in this country.
Yeah.
Something is wrong. And I wanted touch on what you were saying, Sean, as far as the people looking at Dow 5 or the Nasdaq 5,000, S&P 5, whatever it is, and Dow Jones 18,000.
Mm-hmm.
If we just step back just for a second and look at the job market in the 90s, the job market in the 90s, the corporations were begging people to come to work for them. Real wages were rising. There was actual real jobs out there to be had, and this was right during the time that they first started shipping all of our jobs out of this country. Okay, and now let's look at it 20 years later. There are no jobs. It's a jobless recovery, just like what you pointed out. Target, one of the largest retailers in this country, if not the world, is now currently has plans to lay off thousands of people over the next 2 years. Things are not great. And if people don't see what's going on with the stock market as a warning sign as to what is getting ready to come next in relation to what I just said, then they never will. I mean, because that's all you have to do is, I mean, do you guys remember that? Do you remember what I'm talking about?
No, absolutely.
I mean, is it not the same thing except and they stripped us of all of our jobs 20 years ago. Now they're propping us up to say, yeah, the stock market's great. You're all filthy rich and blah blah blah. And now they're setting the table in order to strip all of that wealth out.
Well, you guys, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No,
strip all that. Yeah. Well, you guys remember, of course, it was, I think, Lindsey Williams who said they were going to run the stock market up like this, and I didn't believe it was possible. I did not believe that what's happening right now was possible. I did not think we would ever see Dow 18,000. I've been wrong. And nobody's been more wrong than me about the Dow. And I think that's why Andy Hoffman calls it the Dow propagandist average. It's an absolute joke, and it does not represent reality. As we see the Baltic Dry Index at an all-time low, we see the stock market at an all-time high. This does not compute. It doesn't make any sense. This does not compute.
No. So, doesn't add up.
There's a lot of indicators besides the BDI that are telling you that things are wrong. I mean, commodities have been tanking since mid-2011. Obviously, the plunge in the price of oil, it's not because of oversupply or overproduction. It's lack of demand. If demand was there would be no such thing as oversupply right now in oil.
Right. You guys want to hear something funny? I got to share this anecdote with you as it relates to the economy and the sheeple people who are just going to continue doing what they've been doing for decades, and they're going to continue to flaunt this imaginary wealth they have. Who knows? Maybe a lot of these people that I'm seeing driving around my town bought Apple stock and have kept it all these years, but and maybe they are genuinely wealthy. But you would not believe the number of new GMC Yukons and Chevy Suburbans I'm seeing. The new models have come out here in 2015, 2016, and they're stickering out at between $65,000 and $85,000 and higher, depending on whether or not you get the LTZ or the Denali or whatever. But I was at the dealer getting our oil changed when these new vehicles came out, and they had a hang tag in the on the dashboard of one of these new Yukons. $72,000 truck. And the hang tag was for a lease. And here, you guys want to hear what these lease terms were? It was stunning. I couldn't even believe it. $10,000 down, 36-month lease, $999 a month. Do the math on that. It was like $40-some thousand to rent this truck for 3 years. And I asked the salesman, I said, are you actually moving these trucks with this ridiculous lease? And he said, that's how we're moving them. And we're moving a ton of them. What kind of lunatic would want to put $10,000 down on a truck they don't own and pay $1,000 a month for the privilege of driving around making your friends and neighbors think that you're wealthy, so that after 3 years you can turn the keys back in and you have no equity and nothing to show for it?
Well, you're missing a critical ingredient to that whole equation. You're paying that kind of money for a vehicle that has a very high probability of getting recalled for some production defect within the next 12 months.
Well, that's true.
That's what stuns me about anyone who actually goes and gets a General Motors car. It's like, what are you doing? Aren't you aware that people are dying from driving these vehicles because of production defects? And most of them get recalled within the first 12 months.
But I just think it's stunning. I see these people driving around with these extremely expensive vehicles, and I just wonder how they're making that work. Because if we know what the median income is in this country, and we know that, if you're in the top 5 or 10%, you're pulling home what, $200,000 a year, $225,000, $250,000. Even that doesn't make sense. Those vehicles make no sense even if you're making $250,000 a year. It makes no financial sense.
If you're going to piss your money away, at least get a real automobile, not some U.S.-made piece of crap.
Well, you know what, guys? I think we've covered a lot of ground in a short time here. Anything else we should touch on before we say goodbye?
Nothing I can think of.
My blood pressure's up high enough.
Well, me too. And this wasn't meant to be a doom and gloom conversation, but these are the topics that need to be discussed. Look, Hillary Clinton was at the State Department, and she was running a separate set of books. There is just no better example of the criminality, the criminal oligarchy that's running this nation than this latest news that the woman who was taking donations for her foundation from foreign governments, which should be an impeachable, imprisonable offense, was also running a separate set of books for her own benefit and for the benefit of those she serves. And those emails are hidden on her own private server, and we will probably never figure out the truth about what she's been up to.
No, we'll never get those, but one thing
isn't that treason as well?
It's absolute treason. It's treachery. It's treason. It's a crime against the Constitution and the people. She should be imprisoned.
Well, one thing that just occurred to me is, she's soliciting donations for the Clinton Foundation from wealthy private individuals and corporations. But what favors in return is she dispensing that we don't know about?
Exactly. No, absolutely. That's the concern with this private server. She was running her own separate set of books. She was using her title and privilege in the State Department to serve her own ends. I mean, she was doing the bidding of those she serves through this private email system. And there's just no better example of absolute criminality. But according to the U.S. Today, she is still the front runner for the Democratic nomination for president. There's no question about that. Yeah, there is. There's a lot of question about that. It's insane
Yes,
that Washington Bureau Chief Susan Page at USA Today would even say that, given Hillary Clinton's crimes. I guess that's a good place to end. Guys, thanks so much for listening, and you can find excellent information you're not going to see anywhere else from Dave Kranzler at his site, investmentresearchdynamics.com. We post all his material. Also, Rory's site, dailycoin.org, and of course, our site, sgtreport.com, where we try to carry all of this real news and information all day long, every single day, 24/7. We're moving hell on earth to try to get you guys real information, real news, and we do appreciate your support. Thanks for listening. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.